What's up, dude? I'm sober for like the first time in a year and a half. This is really fucking weird. What happened was I got really high this morning and then I went to work and fucking don't have any more weed, dude. So I'm waiting to go and meet my buddy over at his house. He got some good weed deal in the shadow. Anyways, that's not what this video is about. So what this video is about is, Kyle, are you done making videos, bro? If you're not, perhaps you can compare and contrast why you have cannabis-induced amotivational syndrome. The syndrome. I have the syndrome. No, I'm not done making videos. I will never be done making videos. I am YouTube. If you're not, perhaps you can compare and contrast why you have cannabis-induced amotivational syndrome. Okay. I think I know what you're talking about. Back when I was sober, I was able to make videos consistently. You know, kind of have like more of a well-rounded life. And now that I'm stoner, I'm not doing the well-rounded life thing. I'm only doing the smoking weed, and so that smacks of amotivational syndrome. No motivation. Well, that's assuming I wanted to be uploading videos, and I was never of the intention on uploading videos. It wasn't like I'd be a couple months go by and I go, oh, I wish I could do videos. I wasn't missing doing videos, and so it's not like I'm not motivated, you know. If you were to say I'm unmotivated, that would be, you would have to have the impression that you know, like I think that I'm supposed to do videos, and like that's my identity, and if I don't do videos, I'm a failure or something. And that's not my identity. My identity is my website. My identity part B is the YouTube. But the first thing, just because of all the time that I put in is my website. It's what I'm, I guess, known for is my YouTube. So anyway, so I don't think that I have the amotivational syndrome, but yes, I do have what you're talking about. Sorry if I'm rambling. Is I can't focus. I mean, I can't step back. I call it getting a grip versus spinning out. And when you're stoned all the time, you just spin back out and you can't get a grip. So, yeah, I don't step back and do other things, you know, like water my plants or clean or that kind of stuff, you know. I let that kind of stuff get overdone, and then of course I don't do anything else besides that. I just work on my website. So why do I have it? How does the marijuana have to do with? Now, I wouldn't call it amotivational syndrome. Let's call it something else. Let's call it hyper-focused motivation. The hyper-focused motivation syndrome. It's actually the exact opposite of amotivational. I think one reason you might be saying that it's amotivational is that there is a chunk of our society that don't really have interests or hobbies, and so they will go to work and then they'll come home and they'll just sit there on the couch and basically stare off into space, or they'll watch TV all day long. And common people who do not smoke marijuana and think that it needs to be legal, the useless eater retards from like Oklahoma and stuff, or old people, anybody over the age of like 65. These people don't. Oh my God! I totally lost my fucking train of thought. Yeah. They don't understand the concept of or a lot of people like don't do anything, and so they don't understand the concept of somebody being busy all the time. You know, like for example, school was created. You know, we have school. In my impression, even college is kind of like a place to put people to entertain them, but not to educate them, just to kind of teach them how to be, how to act, and kind of give them something to do. But and if they and try to teach them the idea of learning, but you know, most of the time people don't, and they're not interested in anything. But there's another spectrum of society like me, and you don't think I'm one of these people. You think that I'm the kind of person who just sits around staring at the wall like this. But but there are people out there who, when they smoke marijuana, what happens is marijuana. I mean, I didn't go in Wikipedia and like look at what the THC does chemically with your brain, but it basically supercharges your brain. You know, it's like that movie Lucy. You're using all of your brain. So and so you're using a lot more brain power, and maybe that's what takes energy from you, because now your brain already uses like 10% of your body power. Brain uses a lot of power. It's a gas guzzler. So if you're really high, then it's a super gas guzzler, and then maybe that'll help and make you get tired and stuff. But it also, when you're using all of your energy in your brain and you have a limited amount of energy, you have to start, doing triage. You have to kind of decide what you're going to use your work on, your energy on, and then abandon other parts of your brain. And so there, for example, there were these scientists who were doing a study on people in some university in Dallas, Texas, and the people who smoked a lot of weed, their frontal cortex or something, one of their frontal lobe cortexes was basically shriveled up to a P, so they basically got brain damage. But the part of their brain that was shriveled up was the assessing consequences. They don't look at the consequences. And I can feel a certain part of my brain is shriveled up and missing. And it has something to do with the consequences, but it's not the consequences. It has to do, the part of my brain that has gotten shriveled up and missing has to do with worrying about consequences of what other people think about you, but not the actual consequences, the real consequences. Only the consequences of the mind of the people. But the idea of people's thoughts about you don't really mean anything, because it's fickle. People only kind of go with the wind. They believe what they think they're supposed to believe, but they don't actually believe it. It's just like a knee-jerk reaction. So somebody can be like, oh my God, I fucking lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, people, the fickle mind of the people. You could be weird and everybody could hate you and think that you're stupid, but then you could be like, hey, everybody, as though it's one person. You're wrong, and this is why, da 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 da, and then they all go, oh yeah, you know what I mean? When people believe stuff for stupid reasons, they're only believing it because they want something to believe. But if you give them a better reason to believe something else, then they're going to believe something else. So anyway, that's why the light people think that, where you're smoking weed and then you're not motivated. It's weird that you would write that on my website, because every time I do a video for the last few years, I only talk about my website. I've got my website on there. So all you have to do is click, and then you'll see my website, and then you'll see all this stuff there. Now, to think that it doesn't take motivation to create a website that big and work 16 hours a day, every day for 5 years or 10 years, I don't know. I mean, like, what do you think is motivation? Is motivation to you going on a bicycle ride? I mean, that's the only thing I can think of that I haven't done. But I mean, I did a few years ago, and I can do that. So back to the beginning. I think what you're talking about is my ability to upload videos. Well, I don't have that part of. See, I don't have any pull. I don't feel the pull because that part of my brain's missing. I don't care what people want, because I shouldn't. It doesn't matter in the long run. I mean, I'll make a little bit more money now, I guess, if I'm making videos now, but the videos aren't going to be that good because I'm not going to put a lot of thought into them, and I'm just not. So, but anyway, it can cause problems when somebody for example, if somebody's really high and they can't find the they're too like one-track minded and they can't find the motivation to do certain jobs and tasks they're supposed to do, that can get cut into their job, and then you can blame it on the weed. It's not just about forgetting; it's also about knowing but not wanting to do it. But that would only happen to somebody who's weak and weak-minded, and somebody who's weak-minded would only get high like that and go to work at a job where they can't. There's some jobs where you don't want to be a stoner or be too high, like a manager job where you want to delegate people, or a job where you have to do lots of different things. You have to be balanced, at least for me. Like I smoke weed to do one thing and one thing only, to hammer and to do it. That's why I smoke weed. If I didn't smoke weed, I couldn't do this. I would have to do other things. I can do tedious things when I'm high. So, so it's actually the opposite of what you're saying. It actually gives me motivation. For example, if you wanted to be able to ride your bike across the fucking desert or whatever, like what do you need to stock up on? You need to stock up on water, right? So the water gives you the strength. Well, if you want to make a big ass website, what do you need to stock up on? Weed. So the weed gives you the strength. So to say that weed takes motivation away from you is like saying giving somebody a bunch of water will dehydrate them. How does that make sense? These are sayings from people who don't know what the hell they're talking about because they've never smoked weed, and they're brainwashed by like Bill O'Reilly and Fox News and mainstream media and mainstream people and old people and all this stuff. They're just they don't understand that there are a lot of people out there. Actually, most of the people who actually do stuff, who make things new and start new industries and invent new things, they're probably high when they were doing it. A lot of them, because it brings you, imagination. Engineers, you couldn't be an engineer and be a good stoner because you have to have that short-term memory, and you can't have too much imagination. And engineers don't really have imagination. Engineers are some of my least favorite people because they think that they're smart, what they're not. Because they're good at math. So they think they're all smarter than everybody, but they don't have any like emotional intelligence or like people skills, Anyway, I'm like totally getting sidetracked. So yeah, it's not like, don't look at other people who aren't like you like they're like they're black and white. Life is a lot more interesting and complex than a math equation. It's a whole bunch of math equations thrown in together. It's like, life is like trigonometry, Trigonometry, isn't trigonometry the math of triangles and circulars and curves and variables and shit? Like, that's what life is. Everything's changing and moving around. And so if you see somebody smoking a shitload of weed and like reading or whatever, it doesn't mean they're not motivated. They could be actually paying attention to what they're reading. You don't know what's going on in their head. So yeah, it's funny when you see these people. It's funny when I hear people talk like, oh, no motivation, sitting around, you stoner, lazy or whatever. And it's like, oh, right, of course, because there's this huge chunk of society who just go to work and they come home and they sit there and they don't do anything. No goals, no hobbies, no. Or if they have a hobby, the hobby's there just to give them something to do, but they don't have like a mission, And so when they do see somebody who smokes a shitload of weed, they're like, oh my God, you remind me of my cousin Jimmy, who just smoked a shitload of weed and then just fall asleep. I ain't falling asleep. You could do a click on my website, Web Daily. So the person who made this request probably doesn't even have do you understand what websites are? Do you understand that it makes time to make them and stuff? Anyway, that's the best answer I can give to you on that question. 14 minutes, that's not too long. All right, peace out.